Heather Nichols, a good friend of mine and mentor, and I'm so grateful to have her here today. And welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Heather is coming to Chicago to do one of her amazing classes that is a relatively new creation. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about it on here and kind of get the lowdown all about it. So first of all, you're doing an SE intro. So I'm going to have you talk a little bit about that, and a Be Moved class, which is your movement, access, everything creation.
Yeah.
So, can you just tell us a little bit about it? Like, where to start?
Yeah. Well, yes. No, so this is actually the class in Chicago is going to be the first one in this format. So this is like the inaugural, like premiere of the class, which I'm really excited about. And then I'll be doing it in Seattle and in Boulder, Colorado, where I live, this summer, and then elsewhere as well. And I can talk about the SE intro and the Be Moved kind of together because to me, they really go together. So a little bit about my history that a lot of people who know me don't know. I used to be a body-centered psychotherapist and a dance therapist, like a movement therapist, for 13 years. And I, like, in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, I was a social worker before that. And really, once I didn't even know you could do movement-based psychotherapy and body-centered psychotherapy. And when I found that out, I was like, I'm in. Because to me, including the body has always just made so much sense. And I've been a dancer my whole life and a mover, and, just really have enjoyed my body. And so I really was excited to work in that way with people. And I loved doing that work. And I did it in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different kind of settings. I owned a movement studio. I taught workshops a lot. I taught classes 5 days a week for 13 years, movement classes, and did, therapy one-on-one with people. And I learned this beautiful modality it was called at the time Hakomi Integrative Somatics. And then they changed the name to sensory motor psychotherapy. And there was a lot of working with trauma in the body, and actually, getting to actually, the people that I worked with were the people who turned Bessel van der Kolk, for those people who know him in the trauma world. He's a psychiatrist that works a lot with trauma. They really turned him on to working with the body. They were kind of like his first introduction to including the body in trauma work. And so I was trained by these beautiful people in this beautiful modality of really, where it's like we could create this beautiful space where the body actually would unwind itself, and we could go into truly actually like healing the nervous system by being really present with somebody and their body, and allowing the body to speak and allowing the body to unwind. And the body would unwind, the neurology would unwind, and the trauma would just go away. And it was really super powerful, super effective. And I loved that work. And when I found Access Consciousness, for me, personally, it was so much faster in a lot of ways than the work that I had been doing. So I kind of switched gears to that. And I've since, like, in the recent years, like, really realized how much there still is such a place for that deeper somatic trauma work. And, whether someone identifies as having trauma or not, it's very, there's a very broad spectrum of what can be considered trauma. There's this incredible gift of getting really, really present with your body in motion, moving your body as a way for your body to communicate with you. And then also being present with yourself and allowing your body to move, sometimes in very organic, even very like subtle micro movement kind of ways. And I I'm really excited to be kind of bringing all of this together again, because it's a combination of everything that I've done and everything that I know and everything that I explore and with, in my own world and with my own body.
Wow. Even as you talk about it, and even when we started creating this class, it had such an energy to it of everything that I'm asking for in the world of, really playing with something really different for in the world of psychotherapy, in the world of trauma, um, things that actually work for people and that change the whole the whole being,
Yeah.
and there's something around this that has such a pull to people who maybe don't want to talk about it, or maybe they've talked and talked and talked about it and there still feels like there's something that's not moving or that's stuck. You mentioned Vander Kolk and his, the body keeps the score. I mean, that's what he's known for. And there's so much in that on like how much is still sort of like locked up in the body, no matter how much they speak. So can you talk a little bit about like how movement and like how that actually like starts to release some of those things that maybe we can't get to verbally?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I really have the point of view that that trauma cannot fully be healed and released without including the body. I don't know how you could talk through something. Um, and there's a lot of energetic tools that we use in Access Consciousness as well that I'm including in that. But I don't see how you could actually just talk through something and have it change, because when someone has a trauma, um, and again, the definition of trauma can be very broad. So it depends on who you're talking about and what you're talking about. But there is a neurological component to that for a lot of people. And so what I learned and what I saw when I used to do that work more full time was that um, the you could see what I was trained to do, was really to see how trauma shows up in the body and how it shows up in the nervous system. And we have this amazing autonomic nervous system, which is really responsible for handling trauma and then coming to a deeper state of relaxation after that. So there's, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And there's this sort of like bell curve that occurs, where the sympathetic nervous system kicks in to handle, that's the fight or flight response, fight, flight, freeze. And then if the situation is handled successfully, which in a traumatic event, it's not, then the way an animal's neurology works, the way our neurology works, is that the parasympathetic nervous system takes over to bring your organism back to relaxation. And so part of this Be Moved exploration is about the depth of relaxation that's actually possible when we allow our bodies to unwind in this way. And I'm talking, physical relaxation, but energetic as well. And when a traumatic event occurs, neurologically, you get stuck in the sympathetic fight, flight, freeze response. The relaxation part never occurs. And so people they stay hyper aroused. Like in Access Consciousness, we call it like a trifold sequencing system. They stay hyper aroused, hyper alert, on guard. They can't actually relax. And the body does keep the score. The body has this, and it's adaptive, and then it affects everything that you do in life. And it affects it can create anxiety. Like it can create a lot of emotional experiences and, lack of creativity and lack of connection with people. It just translates into everything.
Sure. Well, it sounds like when you're in that state or like you have a traumatic experience, and like you said, trauma can be all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the big T trauma always, and it includes that. but
Yeah.
where you're sort of in this state of hyperarousal, so you never actually get to have what's truly possible for you and for your body and for your life.
Yeah.
And when you start to do this unwinding, it sounds like there's this relaxation that's possible where, like, can you talk a little bit more, like, about relaxation? What does that even mean?
Yeah, that's a great, yeah. I mean, it's something to me that is like to be explored, because I think a lot of people don't actually get to have the experience of relaxation because on some level, everybody is traumatized. And I don't say that flippantly. And I also don't mean to be like, make that very significant, but it's like, when I like from an access consciousness perspective, abuse is an invalidation of your being. Anytime your being are invalidated, that's abusive on some level. And that's not to minimize people who've been physically traumatized, but it's also to, just speak to it can be real rough living in this world, and at every turn we're getting invalidated for who we are, and so it's like we organize our bodies, we organize our nervous system, and we organize our lives and our bodies and our nervous system and our fascia, which is, we can talk some more about SE in a minute, but like the fascia of the body, which is this like amazing connective tissue that wraps everything, is also it's part of how we store, how we hold these patterns in place, because it wraps our nerves, it wraps all the organs, the bones, the muscle, the connective tissue in the body. It's the most abundant tissue in the body. It's very thin, very strong, and it can hold like crazy. And then you can also turn it more to kind of like a viscous gel-like consistency, which allows for a lot more movement and mobility and things like that. And so to me, fascia is a part of this, because the fascia is part of how the body keeps the score. It uses the fascia to hold these patterns in place, and the neurological patterns, structural patterns that translate into energetic and emotional patterns. And so one of the things that we do in this class is there's a movement modality that I teach called Bowspring, which works a lot with unwinding the fascia from a movement perspective, where we get to be engaged with unwinding our own fascia into a more open, postural, open way of being in the world. And then SE, energetic synthesis of structural embodiment, which is a hands-on modality, part of access consciousness, where we're actually working hands-on with fascia. So people don't learn to do SE in this class, but I do an SE introduction the night before to just start to dive into actually how fluid the body actually is. When you can be with it, when you can be with your own body and another body from a place and a space of kindness, honoring, presence, listening, deep listening.
Yeah.
So, long answer. I didn't really answer your question. But
Energetically, you did. There's such an energy with that, with like how much is stored, and like what you just said, something about how fluid the body actually can be.
Yeah.
And how much do we look at our bodies as solid and real, and as though like it's unchangeable. And it sounds like, as we kind of play with the movement and the SE and the fascia and all these things, it starts to unwind the body into what's actually possible, which I think is beyond what a lot of us have even like been told or taught, or even really looked at, is like how much is stored in the body and how much can change. So
Yeah.
it sounds like, I mean, that is all included.
Yeah. I mean, to me, this is really, it's a very unique perspective, a very unique offering, because it's really a culmination of my life's work. And, not there's not an end point. Like, if this is the beginning of something, I'm so excited to bring everything together, because to me, it all makes so much sense to me. Because there's the energetic piece, the energetics are everything, but there's, how we hold that in our structures, how that translates into pain in the body, how it translates into, our relationships, our creative reality, our ability to relax, to enjoy our life, to enjoy our bodies. And the thing that to me is just such a cool part of this whole thing is that one of the things that I've explored very dynamically with my own body, and also with other bodies in various ways over the past almost 30 years, is that, and yes, I am only 16. So, I started.
I was thinking that. I was like, 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I started this exploration my second year of grad school. So I was 20. How old was I? 27. So I'm 50. I guess I'm 53 now. I had to do the math. I don't remember how old I am. Something like that. They see I'm 16. I can remember 16. I just don't remember 53.
I get that.
But yeah, and I literally, when I was 2 years old, my mom lied about my age to get me into my first dance class, because I've been a mover and a dancer my whole life. But what's so incredible to me is that when our bodies are given the space, like there's a safe space, there's a space of presence, curiosity, kindness, honoring, and we create that in the class, when our bodies are given that space, they're invited into a movement exploration that can look a lot of ways, but they start to unwind on their own. And that can be directly through like bowspring movement or dance, where you're actually like consciously moving your body in a specific way, and it's creating this opening, and then other systems can kind of come online. And also one of the things that one of the ways that I worked with movement when I was doing more of the somatic psychotherapy and the trauma work is there's a point in the unwinding of trauma from a neurological perspective where the body actually starts to move itself. And we used to call this involuntary micro movement. So like when you're in that safe of a space and your nervous system starts to unwind, there's all these impulses and micro movements that your body wasn't able to do in that moment of, whatever traumatic event it may be, that now the body actually like those impulses and responses from a neurological level, they basically get like reinstated, and bodies will move. And you're like, it's the coolest, wildest thing, because it's like, I'm not actually doing this. My body's doing this. And the body unwinds. And it can be very subtle. Like I said, it's like micro movement, involuntary micro movement. And there can be this incredible reorganization of the nervous system, the fascia, and all of that. So we approach movement from a lot of different angles with this exploration, because there's so many different pieces and ways that the body can unwind itself with movement.
Can you just, for somebody like this is their maybe first experience with you or with Bowspring or some of the like movement that you do, like what might a class kind of look like? Or is that not even something you can define?
Well, the way that I've always taught, even when I taught dance a long time ago, when I used to teach dance, I would come in, a lot of times I would put music on, and we would just see what showed up, So that's been a place that that's sort of how I facilitate. And it's always how I've facilitated. I don't really do a lot of planning or like, we're going to do this, 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 and this, you know. We arrive, you know, we find out, like, I will be asking people what it is that they would like to receive from the class, you know, and getting to know them and their bodies, um and the bodies will show us, you know. I'm very connected to bodies. Bodies talk to me, and they're very clear, you know, in their communication with me, at least. Like, I have a ability to listen dynamically to bodies, um and my body informs me as well. So but I can say that it will definitely include, I mean, you know, we will be doing some bowspring movement, which is more kind of, you know, like, I will be guiding people through specific movements from the bowspring practice. There will probably be some music and like free form dance to explore how your body wants to move, you know. There will be conversations. There will be, you know, we'll probably do some clearings and some different, like, just giving people the space to ask questions. There may be some more very, very subtle, like self-directed movement activities that we do. I used to do a movement practice called Continuum that was really beautiful, very subtle, unwinding kind of. And I'm not a teacher of that or anything, but that's informed a lot of what I've done over the years as well. So just really exploring, like, giving bodies a space to really have center stage in how they express themselves with us, you know, and getting our attention, and facilitating bodies into a different space, which then of course translates into everything.
That all sounds amazing, and I love the following the energy of it, and the lack of definition. I think that's actually really beautiful, and I love that we're actually listening to the bodies instead of the structure of, we will do this and then this and then this. So I actually, that like melts my body. That sounds
Yeah.
really incredible. And just for somebody who's like never heard of Bowspring, and anybody listening who knows you at this point is probably a little familiar, but if somebody's listening to this who has no idea what that word Bowspring is, can you just kind of give us a little snippet of it?
Yeah. Bowspring is my new love. I teach Bowspring now. That's something I've been studying pretty in depth for the past year or so. And it's a postural movement system that works a lot with the fascia in the body. It's a self-sculpting system where you actually reshape your body. So it's really cool because it creates a lot of curvaceousness, and, you know, like, people actually like get a waist and their butt lifts, and, you know, there's all these fun, like, you know, aesthetic benefits. Um,
Love it.
it's very, you know, but we work a lot with toning the whole body, because there's something very dynamic about fascia tends to respond. I mean, and the fascia is really what holds everything in place. Like, it holds our structure in place, but it also holds our judgments in place. So, and SE, the hands-on work, is about using touch to melt that. And Bowspring is about using movement and SE is about more than that too. But Bowspring is about using movement to melt that. And fascia tends to be a lot more responsive when it's engaged. So if you took, you know, if you just were to like stretch somebody's fascia, that's not going to be as effective as if they're engaging their body, their muscles, like uniform tone everywhere in the body, and we create directionality in the movement, and we directionality with the tissue and the fascia, that's very unique to the Bowspring system, but actually really honors how our bodies are actually intended to be, which has been lost. I mean, yoga, Pilates, all that stuff is linearizing to the body, and our bodies are not, most bodies are not super linear. We have curves in our spine. You know, we're curvy, and you know, most people are curvy in some way. Some people less, some people more. I never saw myself as curvy until I started doing Bowspring. I was like, oh, I've got a curve in my neck. I've got a curve in my low back. I've got a curve in my groin and behind my knee. And, so we reinstate those curves, the mounds and the hollows of the body, through this uniform tone and directionality of movement. And it's very unique. I've never done anything like it. What it does is it creates this expansiveness in the whole system. So your body starts to open in all directions. And most people are used to like phone type, we do all this like shutting down of the front of the body and hyper extending in the back of the body. Whereas actually the strongest part of our body is the back. And when you're in an open posture, your back is very strong and supportive and the front is open. But in this technology era, we don't use the muscles of our back because we're hunching over and we're closing down the front of our body. So it's this real opening postural system and I always say the best kind of like easy description of Bowspring, which to me doesn't do it justice at all, is that it looks and feels like curvy yoga. But it's way, way, way more than that because there's so many details to it. And there's like this whole universe that you get to explore. And one of the main, like part of the impetus for me for why I wanted to develop this particular work, this Be Moved work, is I started having major releases from doing Bowspring. So I was, once I got really more into Bowspring and my body was really getting how it all worked, because it takes some time to get used to it because it's very different. I would do these kind of longer practices and I would just sob. I mean, it's just like my body would just release. And I was having all this traumatic unwinding that was showing up from the Bowspring because I was opening my fascia, which was changing my neurology, which was allowing my body to release, which was allowing me to get to way deeper relaxation, like actual relaxation. I realized for a while, I was like, I don't actually ever feel totally relaxed in my body. And I'm a body person. Like, I do a lot of stuff for my body. I take really good care of my body. And I realized I never feel totally relaxed in my body. I do now. But there was a lot of unwinding that needed to occur. And, I do now. And what else is possible? There's more. But that was my body really showing me, kind of what I could bring to other people and their bodies that was actually really required. Because I think very few people are actually relaxed in the world.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, it's a conversation we've had here and there of like, even when I've done Bowspring, the few times I've done it with you, I often am so aware of how not relaxed I am.
Yeah.
And it's given me a ton of awareness of like, wow, we don't even realize all day long how much tension we're holding in our body. And that's just like on a day to day and through these bigger releases and sort of like this unwinding of the fascia. I mean, it sounds like there's such more possible than I think we're even present with. And a lot of this kind of gives us the awareness to be present with our body and then really start to unwind like everything that's kind of locking us up in all areas of our life. So it's really incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like so much of it is held in our bodies and we don't even know it. And, I mean, you can walk around the world, like I said, bodies talk to me a lot. And when I was doing more like specific movement therapy, I did this training called psychobiomechanics. It was a long time ago. And with this incredible, brilliant guy. And we would actually just study people in movement. He would take videos of people walking through like a crowded square or whatever. And we would just watch people move. And it was like so fascinating to see how much you could, sort of glean from somebody's body. And then we would also do that with each other. And so we'd be able to sort of check our awareness, like not just a random person that you see on a video, you don't know them, but like actually like, okay, so what I sense is, da 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 da, and people would be like, you nailed it. So bodies in motion, they give us so much information. They give the world so much information. And you change the movement, you change the structure, you change the posture, you change the energetics of everything. Your whole life changes.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for this conversation. There's so much had to be had. And yeah, I mean, everyone listening and now and in the future, you are warmly invited to either their Be Moved class here in Chicago and or any of Heather's upcoming classes. I have a feeling these are going to be all over the world. They're already multiplying. I went on your website today and I was like, oh my goodness, she has a bunch scheduled. So
Yes, I'm
how
very excited about it.
how
So
great is
yeah,
that? Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Heather. Is there anything else before we finish up?
No, yeah, thank you so much for this. It's really cool because I've, done some of my own videos and stuff, but to have a conversation and have you ask me questions, and also with your background and your audience and stuff, it's just really cool to dive deeper into this. And I'm more excited than I was, before we started. So
A lot of you better
thank
than
you.
that. Me
Yeah.
too. So, oh my goodness. Well, thank you so, so much. And thank you
Thank
all for
you.
listening. And we'll finish there. Have a great day, you guys. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.